Hello everyone, I'm Kumar Abhinav and I'm here again on CLAT Gurukul's YouTube channel with our editorial explainer series. For today also I have three editorials which I will be discussing, and I will appreciate if some of you or if more questions comes or you post more questions in the comment section. Any such question would help me also to watch the idea that where you guys are you able to get the concepts here, are you is it beneficial to all of you, those kind of things. So just a feedback would help. That's what I wanted to request you all. And with that note, let's start today's class. First thing first, as we all know, we'll read a message by Salvador Dali. He was a famous surreal artist, and you can say he was the pioneer of surreal artist or surreal art that we know of today. And he said, "Have no fear of perfection. You will never reach it." Some of us do feel or start to feel this way, especially when you are concentrating on in one particular area, that you need to become perfect in that area before you start putting in any action or before you come out as or come out claiming as that is your area. So most of us hesitate or feel this hesitancy in showing whatever skill or whatever talent that we have or that we already possess. And the main reason behind it is the hesitation that we get in our mind due to the fear of perfection, because we feel that we are not yet perfected the art, and that's why we need to first perfect it. First we need to work on our art and then only show to the real world. But let me tell you friends, that would be a very wrong move in order or just to go through your life, because by having that kind of an attitude, what will happen is the time keeps on passing, the time will keep on passing, and you won't get the time to even show whatever skill that you might have. And once you start reach perfection, because everybody could do it or someone would still be there who could do it better than you, but striving towards perfection is a good goal. Or the first thing is, or the first topic rather, is it's time to build BRICS better. So this is one article related to the organization BRICS, and we'll get to know how this particular organization is faring at this point of time. Is there any benefits that are coming out or accruing from this organization? What are the long-term goals? What are the short-term goals? And what are the problems that this organization is facing? The second article which I will take up today is "The Next Step in Democratic Evolution is Overdue," written by Arun Myra. And in this article, Arun Myra explained it very beautifully that how the democracy that we are currently having in our country or in other parts of the world, it needs to take the next step of evolution, because now it appears to be already have gone obsolete. It appears to be of archaic nature. We need to think about the principles attached with democracy, and we need to think about or recalibrate just the idea of democracy that we currently know of. And it needs to evolve in order to go on to the next level. Okay, now with that, let's start with the first topic, in which is "The Next Step in Democratic Evolution is Overdue." Now, it appeared on page number 6 of the Hindi editorial, and in this article, the author has suggested, as I said before also, what are the things, what are the consideration of currently the BRICS organization are, and how they are faring on those things, and what are the short-term and long-term goals are, and the problems that they are facing. So first of all, let's talk about the point of democracy. I'm so sorry, there has been a mismanagement, I guess. The wrong clip has been added to this slide. The clip on this slide should be "The Next Step in Democratic Evolution." So just ignore it. But the article rather is about democratic evolution. It's not related to BRICS. So just let me clarify that first. So it is written by Arun Myra, and in this article he simply has suggested that how our democracy has already reached to a point where we need recalibration of ideas, जहाँ पे हमें ज़रूरत है कि democracy के जो principles हैं उन पे फिर से गौर करने की, और एक बार फिर से ये सोचने की, एक deliberation की कि क्या और सारी चीज़ें हैं जो हमें अब चाहिए डेमोक्रेसी को मॉडर्न बनाने के लिए और उसको अपने टाइम के अकॉर्डिंग बनाने के लिए. कोई भी पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम स्टैटिक नेचर का नहीं होता है. कोई भी पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम होना नहीं चाहिए. अगर वो एक सक्सेसफुल पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम है तो इट विल ऑलवेज बी ऑफ डायनामिक नेचर. इट विल ऑलवेज बी ओपन फॉर चेंजेस. एंड इफ अ सिस्टम इज नॉट ओपन टू चेंज, not open for change, then what will happen is the system then gets obsolete. The system then becomes obsolete. Then there is no relevance of such a system. फिर वो archaic हो जाता है, फिर वो radical हो जाता है, फिर वो फिर वो ट्रेडिशनल हो जाता है इन अ रॉन्ग सेंस, एंड सो एक सिस्टम फिर अभी के लोगों को वो पसंद नहीं आएगा। और तो जो होल आइडिया है डेमोक्रेसी का वो ये है कि इट्स अ रूल और इट्स अ स्टेट, इट्स अ गवर्नमेंट रादर, बाय द पीपल, ऑफ द पीपल, फॉर द पीपल। So when we say that, it means something. It means that the citizen or the citizenry has been given special relevance, has been given special significance under a democratic kind of a system. Okay, so with that, let's start with the article, what the author has suggested and what all we need to consider in this article. First of all, the author has mentioned the features of democracy. What currently we know as the features of democracy. So in that, the first point the author mentions here is that a democratic nation, or any nation for that matter, is also composed of structures, is composed of several parts, just like a human body. The author also has made the comparison with human body. So a human body is also made up of, there are bones, there are muscles, there are several, there are veins, there are arteries, so there are skin, eyes, ears, so several body parts are connecting together. The blood is there, the heart is pumping the blood, several systems and several structures are going around in one human body, in any living organism, and they all are in harmony, they all are in coherence in order for that organism to work efficiently. So if we want a democratic nation to be coherent, the idea here is, the underlying idea here is that democracy is an organism. It's not a living organism, but it's an organism. It has several features, several structures, and if those structures are not followed, and if those structures become weak, just like a human body, if it gets infected with COVID-19, then the body also collapses, as well as the nation also collapses, any democratic nation. Okay. Now with that, he comes to the second point, which is what distinguishes democratic nation from authoritarian state. Authoritarian state is like the state where the person in power has the most authority, and it's a kind of system where person or individuals' right are not being considered, like the system we had when Nazis were there, or fascism can be connected to authoritarian state. So authoritarian state basically signifies that state is having the maximum control, and citizens are living under the obeisance of state, or the government rather. Now what here the point that he raised here is that what distinguishes democratic nation from authoritarian is, हमारा जो democracy है ये एक अलग type का government क्यों, और ये acceptable type का government क्यों है, और authoritarian या fascism ये ऐसी government हमें क्यों नहीं acceptable है. तो the reason behind it is liveliness of citizens participation. जो हमारे डेमोक्रेसी में सिटीजन के पार्टिसिपेशन का पूरा प्रोविजन है, और गवर्नेंस जो होता है हमारे नेशन का, हमारा नेशन कैसे गवर्न होना है, क्या लॉज आनी है, क्या लॉज नहीं आनी है, कौन लोग हमें रिप्रेजेंट करेंगे, कौन लोग हमारे एमपी एमएलएस बनेंगे, और कौन हमें चाहिए एज अ प्रेसिडेंट, हर वो चीज में सिटीजन्स का कुछ से होता है, एंड दैट इज द डिफरेंस इन अ डेमोक्रेसी, और दैट इज व्हाट मिसिंग इन अथॉरिटेरियन स्टेट और इन an authoritarian kind of state. Now the author also suggests that in a healthy democracy, citizens participate effectively in shaping of the policies. आपने तो सुना होगा अभी बहुत सारी मिनिस्ट्रीज इंडियन गवर्नमेंट की कोई भी लॉ लाती है तो वो सिटीजन्स के ओपिनियन जानना चाहती है, वो वेबसाइट पे एक फोरम ओपन कर देती है, एक ब्लॉग ओपन कर देती है, या फिर एक सिस्टम क्रिएट करती है जहाँ पे लोग जाके अपनी ओपिनियन दे सकते हैं कि इस लॉ में क्या होना चाहिए, क्या नहीं होना चाहिए. तो ऐसा करने से हम ये देख रहे हैं कि हमारे यहाँ क्योंकि डेमोक्रेसी है, हमारा एक ये नहीं कि हम लॉ बैठ के बना रहे हैं, बट एटलीस्ट हमारा एक से है इन द लॉ मेकिंग. हम जो पॉलिसीज बन रही है उसमें हमारा एक रोल है, एक रोल टू प्ले देयर जो हम पे फॉल करता है, बिफॉल करता है. Now coming on to the next point, it also says that the democratic constitution provides elected assemblies for citizens representatives to shape new policies and pass law. Our constitution provides the elected assemblies for citizens representatives. It provides us the power to elect our MPs, our MLAs and our representatives per se, and it shows that then also we have a say in that matter. अगर हमसे बिना पूछे किसी को भी प्रधानमंत्री हमारे यहाँ का एमपी बना देते, एमएलए बना देते, तो देन ये होता कि हम नहीं जानते भी नहीं है इस आदमी को ये कैसे हमारा एमपी है. देयर इज नो कनेक्शन देयर, बट इन अ डेमोक्रेसी इट गेट्स इंश्योर्ड कि आपका जो भी रिप्रेजेंट करे देयर इज ऑलवेज अ कनेक्शन, बिकॉज डायरेक्ट वोटिंग इज देयर, वोटिंग होता है, और वोटिंग is based on numbers and numbers never lies. तो वोटिंग में आपको डेफिनेटली पता चल जाना है कि which of the following candidates are going to be elected as the MP or the MLA or the representative of that particular constituency, and it is a very crucial matter, and the right inherently is given to the voters, and that is the citizens. Now, after features of the democracy, the author then moves on to the state of democracy in India. But before doing that, the author first mentions the state of democracy in other nations. He also mentions how in US we have seen a two-party system, and that has created a whole lot of trouble. In US, it is very hard to say that you don't belong to a particular party. You will have to support either the Democrats or the Republicans. The divide is so huge that when Donald Trump got out of power, his supporter stormed the Capitol Hill in order to reinstate him as the president. So that kind of a huge divide is there. They are not considering the law, the constitution, the system, the basic principles, or the ethos of a parliament. In their parliament also, there is no conclusive judgment. There is no effective debate or discussion on any issues. The same pattern can be seen in several countries of the European Union. Even the European Union claims to be the most civilized part of the world, but still in their dominion also in several other states, for example Turkey, for example UK, when UK used to be of EU, or आप एग्जाम्पल ले सकते हो बहुत ही बेसिक फ्रांस का ले सकते हो आप, वहाँ जो इस्लाम के खिलाफ या फिर रेडिकल इस्लामिज्म के खिलाफ जो बिल्स आए उन पे जो डिबेट्स हुई, तो ये सारी चीजें हमें क्या बताती है कि इन ऑल दीज डेवलप्ड डेमोक्रेसी द प्रॉब्लम हैज started to emerge जहां पे एक clear divide दिख रहा है. You are either on this side or that side. You are either supporting the government or you are supporting the opposition, which is not a healthy practice in a healthy democracy. How and why so, the author has mentioned or discussed in much detail in the later article. Okay, the first point here is in India. If we talk now about the India, US and EU have already mentioned. Now we are talking about the state of India. So about India, the author says, parliament-like forums became chamber of close-minded partisan politics. And that is the case with all the nations, be it US, be it the nations of European Union. What they are failing at, they are failing to find solution to the complex systematic problems. Greta Thunberg के नाम से MP MLAs को चिढ़ होती है. Greta Thunberg बहुत गलत काम कर रही है because she has raised this issue of global warming. Now, whatever she is doing or whatever your personal opinion about her does not matter. But the matter here is that our parliamentarians or the state in picture or the people in power, they are not thinking about this issue with that much meticulousness, and this creates a whole lot of problem, because when we are facing with such huge problems, systematic problems, economic repression, you could talk about global warming or just the poverty, global poverty, these all things are rising. Our situation at these parameters are constantly improving, but they are not improving to a level जहाँ पे आप कह सको कि जो हमारे parliamentarians हैं, हमारे representatives हैं, they are literally or they have the intention to improve the condition. What improvement we have seen is the organic improvement. There is no push from the government, and that's what the author is also arguing in this article. After that, the author also says no concern for climate change, historical inequities, increasing economic inequalities, and violence brewing and discontent within. इन सब चीजों के लिए हमारे पास कोई लॉ नहीं है. हम स्टेट्स के नाम बदल रहे हैं, हम स्टेट्स की जगहों के नाम बदल रहे हैं, बट वी आर नॉट थिंकिंग अबाउट कि हमारे यहाँ जो ऑक्सीजन सप्लाई में इतनी कमी आई है, हम उसके लिए ज्यादा से ज्यादा हॉस्पिटल लगाएं. हमारा ध्यान अभी भी पॉलिसी मेकिंग में ऐसी चीजों पे है जो चीजें सिटीजन के इंटरेस्ट में नहीं है, बट हाँ वो गवर्नमेंट को और ज्यादा पावरफुल बना देती है. बी इट डेटा प्रोटेक्शन बिल का रुक जाना, बी इट फार्मर्स बिल का इतनी जल्दी आ जाना, ये सारी चीजें बताती है कि द गवर्नमेंट कॉन्स्टेंटली इज बिकमिंग सेल्फ सेंटर्ड. दे आर थिंकिंग अबाउट देयर ओन इंटरेस्ट एंड नॉट रियली थिंकिंग अबाउट द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ द सिटीजंस कंसर्न्ड. After that, the author also mentions about the constitutions, elections, and assemblies are not all that a democracy need to function. We might think just because we have a constitution, we hold constant elections. हमारे हर 5 साल पे, हर 2 साल पे, हर 1 साल for that matter किसी स्टेट में या फिर कोई लोकल इलेक्शन हो रहे होते हैं, हमारे पास स्टेट असेंबलीज हैं, काउंसिल्स हैं, हमारे पास पार्लियामेंट है, हमारे पास कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, रूल ऑफ लॉ है, सारी चीजें. बट क्या ये इनफ है एक डेमोक्रेसी को फंक्शन करने के लिए? ये एक genuine question है जो ऑथर यहाँ पे रेज करता है. And according to the author has also answered it कि for a healthy democracy to function, what it need most is, जो सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी है, is not constitution, is not election, is not assembly, though these things are also important factors, but what the most important of all of these is the processes of democratic deliberation amongst citizens themselves. There should be an openness amongst the citizens, amongst the citizenry, that they are open to hear about the opinion of others, or they are open for changing their own opinion if they are countered with such a strong opinion or such an opinion which proves them wrong. So there is no openness on that count, be it US or UK or in India also, the similar thing we are seeing. People are divided on very unique fronts. They are divided on religious lines, they are divided on caste lines, they are divided on economic lines. And what it is doing is it is giving the partition politicians a power and opportunity to then further deepen this divide and exploit the situation, don't do anything, and the citizens are themselves so busy creating or fighting with the other class or the people from other side, that they're not concerned with what the government is doing, which is also giving the government a time. So all of this is a vicious cycle, is a vicious circle, which we can only get out with the intention of the government. Until and unless the government decides to change it and we as citizens decide to change it, it cannot happen. If we continue keeping the vile elements or vile sentiments about the other people, about the people who are against us or having different opinion than us, then there is no chance that we will ever reach to a level where a successful deliberation or a fruitful discussion can be a case or can be a possibility. Then after the author suggested some state of democracy in India, it says the cracks in Indian nation is also showing up. We have seen that there has been a talk of people like us and people not like us. ये जो crack है हम देख रहे हैं कि वो हमारे जैसे हैं, वो हमारे जैसे नहीं हैं, वो किसी और धर्म से हैं, वो किसी और जाति से हैं, और ये सारी चीजें हम फिर से एक बार सरफेस होता देख रहे हैं इंडिया में. इसके बाद ये भी बताते हैं ऑथर कि इट एग्जिस्ट इन इंस्टीट्यूशन. ये जो हम देखते हैं डिवाइड, ये ऐसा नहीं कि ये बस गवर्नमेंटल लेवल पे है और बस मीडिया वालों में है, ये इंस्टीट्यूशन में होते हैं, ये ग्राउंड लेवल पे है. ग्राउंड लेवल पे जो लोग रह रहे हैं, जो सिटीजन है, उनके बीच में ये डिवाइड रियलिटी बन चुकी है और उसके बारे में कुछ नहीं किया जा पा रहा है, जो हमारे लिए सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत की बात है. क्योंकि जब सिटीजन्स ये मान के चलेंगे कि जो लोग ऐसे हैं जो उनके ओपिनियन से नहीं अग्री करते हैं, वो उनके दुश्मन है, then a democracy cannot function. Because the whole point of democracy is कि we will have to choose a representative. So the best option would be to choose the representative who has maximum support from the voters or in whom the maximum voters are believing in. So if that is the notion, then we will have to deal with the idea कि जो minority है उनका नहीं सुना जाएगा, उनके जो representatives होंगे वो उनके मन के नहीं होंगे. Does not matter कि the representatives will not be their representatives as well. The representatives then after cannot discriminate on the basis कि आपने किनको वोट दिया था, किनको वोट नहीं दिया था. After that, the author also suggested that the democratic discourses, a discourse is a purposeful discussion, and those kind of purposeful discussion in a democratic way between or amongst the citizens have become a rarity. Rarely the citizens are indulging in discussing a thing with a neutral point of view or with a fair point of view. They always try to impose their own opinion, and there the author raises the question of listening, the power of listening. We all are being talked about from our very early childhood that we all need to talk efficiently, talk affluently, we need to talk clearly, we need to be more articulate in our speech, we need to be more conscious in our speech. So everyone talked to us from the early childhood only about how to speak, but they never told us, or nobody ever teaches us how to listen. And that is what the author says is lacking in the country or in the current climate of the country. What is happening here is the people are already having an opinion and they are stuck with that opinion. They are not ready to change their opinion even if they are presented with facts which clearly makes or which clearly proves their opinion to be wrong. And this is what the author is targeting here. The author also says that the media is also divided along partisan lines. Media में भी एक clear divide हो गया है दो groups के बीच, and social media has turned out to be a hardeners of division. और इसमें जो social media है वो इस divide को और ज़्यादा बढ़ा रहा है. There is little room for thoughtful non-partisan deliberation among citizens as everyone is either pro-government or pro-opposition. Now what could be the next logical step then? First, consent of the governed. The governed here is the citizen. So हमारा consent is about more than periodic election or referendum. हमारा consent just इस बात से नहीं पता चल जाता है कि आपने हमारे यहाँ election करवा दिया है, referendum ले लिया. कंसेंट का मतलब होता है क्लियर कंसेंट. कंसेंट का मतलब होता है कि आप अपनी पॉलिटिकल पार्टिसिपेशन में हमें इन्वॉल्व करो, हमें पॉलिटिकली पार्टिसिपेशन का मौका दो. अ परमानेंट ट्रांजैक्शनल फोरम फॉर सिटीजन पार्टिसिपेशन एंड डेलिबरेशन. नाउ दिस परमानेंट ट्रांजैक्शनल फोरम is a coming idea, and it emerged in European Union. And in this idea, what they're suggesting rather is he will create a forum, will create a permanent kind of a forum, and which will only be ruled and governed by citizens. So there won't be any connection with the government, and there the citizen will have an opportunity to participate and deliberate upon important matters. Now the author also says but just by having this transactional forum in online format, अगर हम इस ट्रांजैक्शनल फोरम को ऑनलाइन सिस्टम में ले भी आए तो उसको हमें सप्लीमेंट करना होगा रियल मीटिंग से, बिकॉज द ऑथर हैज रियलाइज्ड कि ऑनलाइन फोरम इज नॉट अ परफेक्ट सब्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ ऑफलाइन मीटिंग. जब आप किसी से पर्सनल आई टू आई बात नहीं कर रहे हो, इन पर्सन बात नहीं कर रहे हो, तो इट वोंट हैव दैट काइंड ऑफ एन इफेक्ट. सो जस्ट हैविंग अ परमानेंट ट्रांजैक्शनल फोरम ऑनलाइन और एन ऑनलाइन परमानेंट ट्रांजैक्शनल फोरम इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी ऑफ दैट मच हेल्प. The author also suggested that had all the Athenians citizen been a Socrates, अगर सारे के सारे Athens के citizen Socrates की तरह सोचते तो उस assembly में भी बस mob बचते, वहां भी फिर similar thoughts हो जाते. और जब एक ही आइडिया हर आदमी कह रहा है, डाइवर्सिटी नहीं है आइडिया की, एक मोनोकल्चरलिज्म आ गया है, एक आइडिया में मोनोकल्चरलिज्म आ गया है, आफ्टर दैट यू सडनली रियलाइज कि द डेवलपमेंट इज ऑल्सो रेस्ट्रिक्टेड. You will have to be open to accept other ideas, other opinion in order to develop further, in order to, because what you know, you already know. So by listening to somebody else, you are anyway going to learn something new, because if you keep on talking, you are just strengthening the same things which you already know. You are repeating the same things. So the best way, or the best way to grow further, is to allow yourself to listen sometimes, and that is what the author is suggesting in the whole article. The author also said it is not just the quality of the people in the room that matters. Just because कि हमारे MP MLA जो चुन के जाते हैं वो सारे के सारे बेस्ट हो रहे हैं, इससे नहीं फर्क पड़ता, इससे ये नहीं कहीं से भी प्रूफ होता है कि वो जो काम करेंगे वो भी बेस्ट होगा. सिटीजन्स की मीटिंग ऑनलाइन ऑफलाइन ऐसा होना चाहिए, हम जो ट्रांजैक्शनल फोरम बनाए उसको ऐसे डिजाइन करें जो हर एक सिटीजन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू को सुनने का मौका देता हो, किसी को भी सिंपली बायोकॉट नहीं करता हो, किसी के भी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू को सिंपली डिसेंट नहीं बना देता हो, सिंपली उसको डिसमिस नहीं कर देता हो. देन the final message that the author has is a conscious listening is required. We need to start listening more rather than just keep on focusing on our monologue or saying things that we want to say. Monocultures of thought is the same idea. If we have a single kind of thought, then it becomes sterile, it becomes banjar, it does not then produces such a good result. So if you want good results, if you want improvement, if you want development, you will have to allow multiple ideas to flourish at the same time. You need diversity in order to grow to the next level, and then ultimately diversity of opinion can create cacophonies. The author also realizes that there is a sound, or there is a side effect of it, or there is a downside to it, and that downside is कि अगर हम just diversity of opinion पे focus करें तो वो cacophony लगता है, हर आदमी अपने मन से कुछ भी कह रहा है, वो cacophonous हो जाता है, वो कड़वा लगता है सुनने में. जो बेस्ट तरीका है वो ये है कि उस टाइप के diversity of opinion का जब deliberation हो रहा हो, जब लोग discussion कर रहे हो, तो उसको manage किया जाए बहुत ही अच्छे तरीके से. It needs to be managed well, and ultimately the author has one clear message, and that is the time demands the will, the political will to conduct dialogues, not debates. हमें यहाँ डिबेट नहीं करना है जहाँ हमारा इंटेंशन हो कि हम आगे वाले को कैसे भी करके हरा दे या उससे अच्छे पॉइंट्स बोल के हम उसे दबा दे. रादर हमारा इंटेंशन ये होना चाहिए कि हम आगे वाले को सुने, एक पर्पसफुल डायलॉग में एंट्री करें और वहाँ से कुछ फ्रूटफुल, मीनिंगफुल, प्रैक्टिकल स्टेप्स एज अ रिजल्ट उसके हमें पता चले कि हम उसको अप्लाई करके उन प्रॉब्लम्स को दूर कर सकें. दैट इज द होल आइडिया ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर आर्टिकल. Okay, now let's discuss something about BRICS. What is BRICS? So BRICS basically is, or was rather, or an organization made by 5 emerging national economies. At the very beginning, only Brazil, Russia, India and China were the members of BRICS. So it was only known as BRIC back then. So when it started, it was only known as BRIC. But then later on, South Africa also joined and became a part of it in 2010. And after that, it was started to known as BRICS. So 2010, after 2010, we have BRICS as a system. Apart from BRICS, India is member of some other important groups as well as SAARC, Commonwealth, UN, G20, G8+5, G4, BIMSTEC, APEC, etc. So that is just extra information that you need to know. Rajiv Bhatia wrote this article, and in this article he has simply mentioned, and here also the clip is mismatched, it shouldn't be here, but the basic idea that the author is presenting here is what are we going to do about BRICS, how the BRICS is currently performing at the standards, at the parameters. So let's start with the first slide. The first slide, it is in the wake of 13th BRICS summit. अभी जो recently 13th BRICS summit होने वाला है on September 9th, उसके बारे में ये पूरा आर्टिकल है, उसी के वेक में ये आर्टिकल को लिखा गया है। होना है सितंबर 9 को ये डिजिटल फॉर्मेट में, और इसका चेयरमैनशिप इंडिया करेगा। इंडिया इसका चेयरमैनशिप 2012 एंड 2016 में भी कर चुका है, और इस ग्रुप के जो मेंबर्स हैं अभी हमने डिस्कस किया, ब्राजील, रशिया, इंडिया, चाइना एंड साउथ अफ्रीका, एंड दे ऑल शेयर द चेयर्स इन टर्न। इस साल अगर इंडिया ने किया है, नेक्स्ट ईयर फिर कोई और कंट्री करेगी, उसके नेक्स्ट ईयर फिर कोई और कंट्री करेगी। The importance of BRICS is self-evident. It represents 42% of world population. तो ब्रिक्स के जो 5 मेंबर है, आप अगर नोटिस करो तो ये पांचों बहुत ही पॉपुलस कंट्रीज है, बहुत सारे लोग यहाँ रहते हैं। तो इट मेक्स अप अराउंड 42% ऑफ वर्ल्ड पॉपुलेशन। चाइना और इंडिया हो गया तो ऑटोमेटिकली वो 22% से ऊपर हो गया। Then 30% of land area is also covered by the nations or the members of BRICS. 24% of global GDP. Now here we can see that it is not faring at the standard. अगर 42% population है, then global GDP should also be to that tune or at that level. But it is not the case, which shows that the group of the nation is not faring that much well in terms of international competition. And then 16% of international trade is also governed by these 5 nations. So it's an important organization in itself, and we don't need to give more evidences to just prove that. Later on, the author then mentions that recently the foreign ministers of Brazil, Russia, India and China launched this meeting. How it started? It started in 2006 when foreign ministers of Brazil, Russia, India and China launched this scheme where they stated that now we will be called as BRIC. Then it turned itself into BRICS in 2010 with the entry of South Africa. The main intention of this organization is to serve as a bridge between the global north and the global south. Global south and global north, a concept which we have already discussed, which basically means global south are the accumulation of all the nations who are, or the group of all the nations who are underdeveloped or developing, but developing in the lower tier. Global north is the developed nation. So BRIC, the intention behind BRIC was to emerge as a bridge between these two groups, these two blocks. America जैसे अगर एक country है, तो on the other hand we will have country like Mongolia, countries like Sri Lanka. So that is global north and global south. And उसके बीच में bridge बनने का intention था BRICS का. What it has already achieved, so they have developed the new development bank, they have established rather, and which created a financial stability net in form of contingency reserve arrangement. कभी भी कोई ऐसी contingency होती है तो the new development bank takes the precedence, and they allow or they grant some subsidies, they grant some loan, or they grant multiple other arrangement. They devise multiple other arrangement to help the government and in power whomsoever is facing such a problem. कोई भी अगर financial stability की problem होती है तो वहाँ पे New Development Bank help करता है। And now it is coming out, और इस बार ऐसा हो सकता है कि इस summit में ये भी news आए कि they will be setting up a vaccine research and development virtual center. वैक्सीन के रिसर्च और डेवलपमेंट के लिए एक वर्चुअल सेंटर की भी ओपनिंग की बात चल रही है, जो हो सकता है 13th BRICS समिट में बाहर आए, जो हमें पता चले। Now let's look at the priorities at hand. क्या क्या मेन चीजें हैं जो ब्रिक्स करना चाहते हैं, और ये इन्फॉर्मेशन आपको मिलता है अभी रिसेंटली हमारे फॉरेन मिनिस्टर एस जयशंकर के स्टेटमेंट से। So according to him, because India has the chairmanship this time, according to him, he has suggested total 4 priorities that are at hand currently. The first is to pursue reform of multilateral institutions ranging from the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Trade Organization, and now even WHO. The first aim here is कि जो मल्टीलैटरल इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, चाहे वो यूनाइटेड नेशन हो, वर्ल्ड बैंक हो, WHO, इनमें एक रिफॉर्म लाना, क्योंकि अकॉर्डिंग टू ब्रिक और अकॉर्डिंग टू एस जयशंकर उनमें रिफॉर्म की अब जरूरत है। जो मल्टीलैटरल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है वो उतने अच्छे से काम नहीं कर पा रहे जो उनको करना था। अभी तक उस काम में ब्रिक्स को बहुत ही लिटिल सक्सेस मिली है, ब्रिक्स ने बहुत ज्यादा कुछ किया नहीं है उस दिशा में और मल्टीलैटरलिज्म को स्ट्रेंथन करने के लिए। बट मल्टीलैटरलिज्म इन इटसेल्फ एक्ट्स एज अ गुड बॉन्ड। मल्टीलैटरलिज्म इज द पावर ऑफ दीज 5 नेशन। ये पांचों के पांचों नेशन अगर देखें तो मोस्ट डिवर्स नेशन है, तो ये लोग प्लीड कर सकते हैं इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से टू टेक द कंसिडरेशन ऑफ अदर अंडर डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज एज वेल एंड बिकम और इमर्ज एज अ ब्रिज बिटवीन दीज 2 blocks. The second priority is to resolve to combat terrorism. Obviously, in the wake of Taliban getting power in Afghanistan and every other thing that are happening, the countering terrorism becomes a very important part. And for that, they are crafting BRICS counter-terrorism action plan. They are coming up with BRICS counter-terrorism action plan. BRICS counter-terrorism action plan. which will contain specific measures to fight radicalization, terrorist financing, and misuse of the internet by terrorist groups. Third is promoting technological and digital solutions for the sustainable development goals. And after COVID-19, one thing that is the reality, or one thing that all the governments or even public have realized, is that we cannot avoid or shy away from technology or using technology. So promoting technology and digital solution could be one of the priority of BRICS in order to attain the sustainable development goals also. Now, regarding that, we have seen that digital tools have helped even India and other nations, especially in the COVID-19. The offices were able to function, the courts were able to function, and all due to the advent of internet and due to the advent of technology. And if we talk about technology, we need to mention that India also has been on the forefront of using new technology. हर दिन हमारे गांव में लाखों लोग मोबाइल से रूबरू होते हैं और मोबाइल उन्हें मिलता है. हमारे शहरों में भी उससे भी ज़्यादा रेट में मोबाइल लोगों को मिल रहा है. धीरे धीरे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जनता मोबाइल पे आ रही है, उनके पास स्मार्टफोन्स है, उनके पास इंटरनेट है, which gives us this idea that now technology has become an everyday issue, has become a very necessity of everybody's life, and everybody is already having the accessibility of it in some form or other. And fourth is expanding people to people cooperation. ये भी BRICS का priority है. Technological and digital solution is one thing, people to people cooperation is another thing. And for that, what the author is suggesting, we will have to wait for the international travel to revive. Until and unless the international travel does not get revived or is not started yet, we will not be able to do this, because a personal interaction is always needed. It can never be a good replacement of offline interaction, however online interaction we develop or however much better we develop as a technology, but it won't be a good substitute ever of the in-person meeting. And for in-person meeting, it needs to, or the world, you can say the world transportation needs to revive first. Every country is putting a ban on sanction on people coming inside or people going outside to other nation, so that needs to go first, and that will only go after COVID-19. So let's see when will that happen, but that is also one of the top priorities of BRICS. Now, the problems that BRICS faces currently, the first one is, that is obvious also, and which says China's economic rise has created serious imbalance within BRICS. China का जो economic rise है, इससे clearly हमें एक चीज पता चलता है कि China सबसे top पे आ गया इन 5 नेशन में, और उसके पास अब सबसे ज़्यादा say है, सबसे ज़्यादा negotiation की power, which has created an imbalance, because जब पांचों नेशन साथ आए थे, तो इनका एक गोल यही था, एक common bond यही था कि they were all at par in terms of every other thing or in terms of economy. But now that is not the case. China has raised their economy to whole another level. Apart from that, they have also adopted a very aggressive policy, especially against India. We have seen the Ladakh standoff. We have seen the standoff or the conflicts that are constantly emerging between India and China. And so, in order to address that in a proper manner, we need to devise a plan where Beijing or the China itself starts acting less aggressively, because now, or the current situation or the current attitude that they are showing, it puts India or it puts other nation in a bad light, or it has the propensity rather to create more disputes between such nations or between the member nation of BRICS. Now, moving ahead, it says that the BRICS countries have not done enough to assess the global south to win their optimal support for their agenda. Now, the whole idea behind BRICS was to become a bridge between global south and global north. Global south here we are referring as the underdeveloped country or the developing countries. But the author here is suggesting that BRICS as an organization have failed to garner enough support from this global south. They have not received enough support for their agenda. Global south is not really putting that much trust into them, that much expectation. They are not raising their expectations about the organization itself. The author also mentions that the BRICS negotiator need to master the art of brevity and tight drafting. The problem or the lacking that is visible or evident there is that they're not very sure about what they want to negotiate on or what are the points. The problem is articulation rather. So first the need is to create such a contract or give such an offer which are to the point, and the drafting must be very tight. Without a tight drafting or with loose drafting rather, it won't be possible to attract the global south or to gain the support of the global south for BRICS agenda. After that, the author says, when they do so, they will realize that unduly lengthy communiques are an index to the grouping weakness, not strength. Just because you are coming up with large documents और आप बहुत ज़्यादा verbose communication करते हो, बहुत ज़्यादा किसी point को discuss करते हो, does not gives the idea कि आप किसी चीज़ के लिए fruitfully कुछ काम कर रहे हो. What is a fruitful discussion? तो fruitful discussion could be जहाँ पे निकल के कुछ point आए जिसको आप प्रैक्टिकली अप्लाई करके उस पर इम्प्रूव कर सकते हो, उस पर वर्क कर सकते हो. ऐसे डिस्कशन का कोई पॉइंट नहीं है जहाँ पे बस वर्बोस हो, जहाँ पे वर्ड्स बहुत ज्यादा यूज किए हुए हो, बट उससे आप कुछ भी अर्थ नहीं निकाल सकते हो. यू आर नॉट एबल टू गेट और कॉम्प्रिहेंड व्हाट आर द प्रैक्टिकल पॉइंट्स फ्रॉम दैट. सो दैट्स व्हाट द ऑथर इज आल्सो आर्ग्यूइंग और इज फाइंडिंग एज अ प्रॉब्लम विद ब्रिक्स और विद द नेगोशिएटर्स वर्किंग विद ब्रिक्स. And that's all about the BRICS. You need to know about when the organization started, what are its goals, what are its short-term, long-term goals, and every other thing. So it will help if you just Google it once, read about it in detail, and it's an important organization which we all will be, which we all get to read time and again in editorials. Okay. Now moving on to the last discussion or the last topic of the day rather, which is applicability of res judicata between co-defendants. Supreme Court explains. So Supreme Court, the bench of Justice Kishan Kaul and Hemant Gupta, in the case of Union of India versus S. Narasimulu Naidu, they have stated or they have come up with this idea or they have rather explained the applicability of res judicata between co-defendants. So what this principle is or what it says about it, all of that thing we'll get to know today. So first let's start with the idea itself. What are the observation of the courts? The court has observed that the requisite condition to apply the principle of res judicata as between co-defendants are that there must be conflict of interest between the defendants concerned. एक कोई conflict of interest होना चाहिए. अगर A और B के बीच में कोई इश्यू है तो देयर मस्ट बी सम काइंड ऑफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. कोई भी एक मैटर होना चाहिए जिसके कारण या जिसके ऊपर उनके बीच वो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट शुरू हुआ है. देन इट इज नीडेड कि इट मस्ट बी नेसेसरी टू डिसाइड दिस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इन ऑर्डर टू गिव द प्लेंटिफ द रिलीफ ही क्लेम्स. इसके बाद ये कह रहे हैं कि जो दूसरा ऑब्जर्वेशन था वो ये था कि इस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के रिजोल्यूशन के बिना प्लेंटिफ को वो क्लेम नहीं दिया जा सकता है, एंड विच इज द केस मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स. अगर डिस्प्यूट हुई है तो टू प्रॉपर्ली रिजॉल्व दैट डिस्प्यूट you would need to give the plaintiff the relief he claimed. You would have to decide the conflict. You will have to come up with a judgment. And then ultimately the author has observed that the question between the defendant must have been finally decided. कि in the previous suit अगर वो जो question जो defendant और plaintiff के बीच में था उसका फाइनल डिसीजन होना जरूरी है. अगर वो नहीं हुआ है तो हम प्रिंसिपल ऑफ रेस जुडिकाटा लगा नहीं सकते. यहाँ फिर एक कंफ्यूजन क्रिएट हो रहा होगा आपके मन में कि सर किस बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं या फिर ये प्रिंसिपल लगाने से पहले के क्या कंडीशन है. तो उसके लिए मैं आपको सिंपल वर्ड्स में समझाता हूँ क्या ये प्रिंसिपल कहता है हमसे, और उससे भी पहले आपको मैं ये बताऊंगा कि ये प्रिंसिपल है कहाँ. तो सिविल प्रोसीजर कोड सेक्शन 11 mentions this principle or gives an idea about this principle, and it simply says कि a case cannot be heard again. Similar matter between the same defendants on the same conflict on the same issue cannot be heard again, cannot be decided again. There are some reasons for that. So let's first see what are the prerequisites for a res judicata principle to become applicable. So there must be a final judgment. So the parties must be same. So for example, A and B, let's say, have a dispute. So if they had a dispute and they went to the court already, the court must have passed the final judgment. If that is the case, then only we can move on with the res judicata principle. Secondly, the judgment must be on the merits. जजमेंट ये नहीं था कि कोर्ट ने बिना मेरिट्स कंसिडर किए, बिना फैक्ट्स एविडेंसेस को कंसिडर किए, और ऑल्सो जो जजमेंट को फेयर नहीं हम कहते हैं वैसा जजमेंट नहीं था. दिस जजमेंट इज फेयर, इट्स पार्शियल एंड इट्स ऑन मेरिट्स. एविडेंसेस फैक्ट्स सबको कंसिडर करने के बाद दिया गया. Then third requisite is the claim must be same in the first and second suit. A और B के बीच का जो डिस्प्यूट ऑलरेडी रिजॉल्व हो गया है, सेकेंड टाइम जब ये लोग मैटर लेके आए हैं तो ये लोग फिर से उसी चीज के बारे में मैटर लेके आए हैं. अगर A और B के बीच में लेट से प्रॉपर्टी D के बारे में डिस्प्यूट था, जहां A कह रहा है कि ही इज द ओनर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी D एंड B कह रहा है कि नो ही इज द ओनर, एंड उस डिस्प्यूट का फाइनल रेजोल्यूशन ये हुआ कि कोर्ट ने बोला B इज एक्चुअली द ओनर ऑफ द प्रॉपर्टी, एंड देन A files a case again on the same issue. D is my property and B has wrongfully acquired it. In that case, the court will simply not entertain the appeal, or simply not entertain the petition, just because the case has been already decided. If the court, let's say, start doing that, what what would happen is it would kill the time of the court. हमें कोर्ट के टाइम को भी देखना है. That is also, it is killing the time or wasting the judicial processes. जब एक matter already settled हो गया, there is no need to then reclaim it in the court or reinitiate in any court of law. And then the last point, or the last requisite rather, is the parties in the second action must be the same as those in the first. अगर A और B के बीच का डिस्प्यूट है तो सेकंड बार अगर ये लोग एप्लीकेशन लाते हैं, केस फाइल करते हैं, तो उनका डिस्प्यूट नहीं सुना जाएगा. बट अगर A B के अलावा C के खिलाफ केस फाइल करता है, जो B का हो सकता है भाई हो या कोई और हो, तो यहाँ पे क्योंकि पार्टीज चेंज हो गए, यहाँ पे आप रेस जुडिकाटा प्रिंसिपल नहीं लगा सकते हो. बिकॉज हियर द प्रोसिक्यूशन और एनी साइड कैन नॉट क्लेम कि द मैटर हैज ऑलरेडी रिजॉल्व. मैटर कुड ओनली रिजॉल्व वंस द कोर्ट हियर्स द मैटर ऑन मेरिट्स. एंड अभी क्योंकि A और C के बीच के मैटर को कभी कोर्ट पहुंचा ही नहीं, कभी कोर्ट ने सुना ही नहीं, the principle wouldn't simply be applicable. Okay, there were some more observations. One was that the principle of res judicata will not apply if the subject matter of the suit is not the same as that of earlier suit. For example, let's say A and B के बीच का जो dispute था पहला, वो property D से related था, but अब A को कहना है कि B ने property D तो उससे हथियाया ही था, property E पे भी B ने wrongfully acquire किया, wrongfully possession ले लिया है. अब यहाँ जो अगर एक केस फाइल करेगा तो he will not file the case on the basis of property D. Rather, the subject matter of the case has changed. Now A is filing this case on property E. His contention is कि now I want to say property D. Okay, I have already forgotten. But property E is a new case, is a new matter, is a new or simply a new addition to the whole issue. And so it's not the same issue which has been decided by the court earlier, and so it can be taken up again by the court. There is no issue with that. There is no problem with that. Ultimately, the court has also observed that for res judicata to apply, the matter in the former suit must have been alleged by one party and either denied or admitted, expressed or impliedly by the other. मतलब कि जो res judicata principle को हमें अप्लाई करना है, वहाँ पे ये बहुत जरूरी है कि मैटर अगर पहले के सूट में उसी तरीके से उठाया गया था और उस मैटर का अगर रिजोल्यूशन हो चुका है, तभी आप इस प्रिंसिपल को लगाओगे. अगर उस मैटर का रिजोल्यूशन नहीं हुआ है, अब जरूरी नहीं है कि मैटर एक्सप्लिसिटली रिजॉल्व हुआ है. हो सकता है कि पिछले केस में जब डी प्रॉपर्टी डी की ओनरशिप की बात थी, वहां पे कोर्ट बोला कि बी के पास ओनरशिप है, बट हो सकता है कि वहां पे कोर्ट ये भी बोला कि बी के पास ओनरशिप है, बट डी हैज ईजमेंटरी राइट ओवर अ पोर्शन ऑफ द प्रॉपर्टी. नाउ the issue was not about the easementary right over the portion of that property, but still that issue was resolved by the court. Now B cannot file another case stating that that portion of the property जिस पे उसका easementary right निकला था A का, वो अब उसका है या फिर वो उस पे केस फाइल करना चाहता है, simply because that issue has also been resolved by the court in the previous suit, even though that issue was not the focal point of the matter. It was not the express or explicit issue in that case of point. Okay, then the judges in this particular case has also relied on the decision of K. Ithirajan versus Lakshmi, and in that case the court opined that the principle of res judicata would be applicable where the issues directly and substantially involved between the same parties in the previous and subsequent suit are same. So three keywords are here. The issues must be directly and substantially involved. The issues which have already been resolved by the court, if those issues are being talked about in this application also, and the parties are also the same, parties भी वही है जिनके बीच का वो मैटर रिजॉल्व कर चुका है कोर्ट, तो उन केसेस में आप प्रिंसिपल को अप्लाई करोगे. बट इस प्रेजेंट केस में हुआ ये, प्रेजेंट केस में एक टेनेंट का केस था और जहां पे ये कहा गया था कि उसकी प्रॉपर्टी जो है वो उसका एक पोर्शन ही उसका है, उसके अलावा के पोर्शन पे कुछ बात नहीं हुई थी. अब वो बोल रहा है कि इस प्रॉपर्टी का जो पोर्शन उसको मिला था, उसके अलावा जो बाकी की उसकी अटैच्ड लैंड थी, उस पे सरकार का कब्जा है. सो ही फाइल्ड एन एप्लीकेशन अगेंस्ट द गवर्नमेंट कि गवर्नमेंट उससे इंक्रोचमेंट कर रही है लैंड को विदाउट गिविंग हिम द फेयर कॉम्पनसेशन. द कोर्ट रियलाइज्ड कि नो, द प्रीवियस जजमेंट वाज ओनली इन्वॉल्विंग अ पोर्शन ऑफ दैट लैंड, नॉट द होल लैंड. So in this issue, the subject matter is changed, the subject matter is not the same, and so we cannot apply the principle of res judicata. So that's what happened in this particular case, but that is not the point. The point is the concept of res judicata, which I want you all to understand. Now let's just dive into the principle only and let's get more clarity about this principle, because it will feature again and again in multiple editorials. Whenever you get to read about any legal matter, you will find this word, so widely used word. Okay, or rather phrase. What the word simply means, res मतलब एक subject matter, judicata means decided. So res judicata simply means कि a matter that has already been decided. So for example, if John enters an action against Megan for not paying him for the construction of her house, and the action reaches a judgment, John cannot re-enter an action for the same reason since the subject matter has already been decided. Okay, section 11 of Civil Procedure Code, not code, I'm so sorry, it should be code. So section 11 of Civil Procedure Code mentions this principle of res judicata. It also is known as rule of conclusiveness of judgment. Once the judgment is given on one matter, we will have to take it as the final decree. We cannot then object to it. We will have to accept it. So that proves, अगर हमारे पास res judicata principle नहीं होता तो judgments की जो conclusiveness है वो नहीं मिलती. हर एक judgment पे दोबारा से केस फाइल होता. अब एक हस्बैंड वाइफ का डिवोर्स हुआ और डिवोर्स फाइनलाइज हो गया, हस्बैंड ने फिर से आगे केस कर दिया कि नहीं हमें डिवोर्स नहीं चाहिए. ये प्रॉब्लम से बचने के लिए वी नीडेड अ प्रिंसिपल लाइक रेस जुडिकाटा व्हिच बार्स सच एन एक्शन, और जो सिंपली प्रोहिबिट करता है ऐसे एक्शन को लेने से. एक बार मैटर रिजॉल्व हो चुका है तो यू कैन नॉट इनिशिएट द सेम सूट इन एनी कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ. नाउ what are the features of res judicata? What are the things that are necessary that we also need to understand? So matter in issue. What is matter in issue? It simply means the right litigated between the parties. Every case that you take to the court, जो भी आप केस कोर्ट में ले जाते हो, हर एक केस का जो फंडा है, जो बेसिस है, जो जिस चीज पे वो बेस्ड है, और जो आपका आप कह सकते हो जो आपका लॉन्ग टर्म एक्सपेक्टेशन है उस केस को ले जाने से, वो है अपने राइट के बारे में क्लैरिटी लेना. या तो आपको जमीन का विवाद है जहां पे आप ये सोच रहे हो कि जमीन के मालिक आप हो बट आगे वाला कह रहा है वो है, या फिर डिवोर्स का मामला है तो आप मेंटेनेंस चाह रहे हो, या फिर चोरी का मसला है उसमें आप चाह रहे हो कि जिसने चोरी की उसको पनिशमेंट हो जाए. इन सारी चीज में आप अपनी राइट क्लेम कर रहे हो. और ऐसे भी जस्टिस का मतलब ही है डिजर्व, to give what you deserve, which is also inherently connected to the idea of rights. तो जब हम मैटर इन इशू का बात करते हैं, इट इन्वॉल्व्स ऑल द इशू जहां पे कोई राइट के बारे में लिटिगेशन हुआ था और उसका फाइनल कंक्लूजन आया. तो इट इन्वॉल्व्स द फैक्ट्स ऑन विच द राइट इज क्लेम्ड, the law applicable to the determination of that issue. Such issue can be an issue of fact, issue of law, or mixed issue of law and fact. Does not mean कि बस fact ही होगा हमारा matter in issue. ये issues of law भी हो सकते हैं, और it can be either of these, or it can be a mixed issue of law and fact. So that must be clear to all of you. और second है substantially, essentially, materially. Now that is also a very important thing. If the matter that has been decided is not essentially the same matter that is being claimed in this particular suit, then you cannot apply the principle of res judicata. You can only apply it when similar matter is claimed in similar fashion. Just like I gave the example of divorce. एक बार डिवोर्स होने के बाद अगर हस्बैंड दोबारा से कहीं केस फाइल करता है कि नहीं ये डिवोर्स गलत है या मुझसे वो डिवोर्स नहीं ले सकती, दैट इज अ सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ इशू जहां पे आप रेस जुडिकाटा को लगा सकते हो, क्योंकि सेम इशू वाज ऑलरेडी रिजॉल्व्ड इन द कोर्ट. कोर्ट हैज ऑलरेडी ग्रांटेड द वुमन अ डिवोर्स. Thirdly, no uniform rule. Don't go for a static or an exhaustive list of rules which you can apply in order to answer the question about the application of res judicata. That can never happen. Res judicata is a very dynamic principle in itself, and the application of it is not universal. There is no uniform law to apply it. What rather happens is the court decide it on fact of each case. Court decide it on case to case basis. They determine the facts in each case. They read it. They look around the matter in issue. They look for the law involved, and after that they finally come to a conclusion that whether they want to apply this principle or not. So there is no universal application. Rather, or neither there is an universe or there is a exhaustive list which could guide us that where can we apply this principle or where can we not. Ultimately, suit. What is suit? The expression suit has not been defined in the code. There is no definition of the expression suit, but it's simply a proceeding which is commenced by a presentation of plaint. ये बस एक proceeding है जो आप तब प्रेजेंट करते हो जब आप एक कंप्लेन करते हो, जब आप एक जुडिशियल मजिस्ट्रेट या किसी भी कोर्ट में आके कंप्लेन डालते हो, और उसके बाद जो प्रोसेसेस होते हैं उन्हीं को सूट कहा जाता है. And that's all about res judicata that you need to know. There are so many things like constructive res judicata and all those principles, but then that would need a detailed discussion of the similar matter. This much, if you know, you would be able to answer at least the basic questions, MCQs, or any other hypothetical question that has been presented to you. And with that, I would end this discussion. I'd appreciate if more, or if I get some comments from you guys. I would love to have some feedback. And that's all. Have a happy day.